Ethan Blake stood before the towering glass windows of his penthouse, staring out at the glittering skyline of New York. The city never slept. Lights blinked from every corner, streets buzzed with life. But inside the apartment, there was only silence. He could buy anything he wanted: jets, cars, islands. But what he wanted most was something no amount of money could buy: love. At 35, Ethan had done what most could only dream of. He built Blake Tech from his parents' small garage. What started as a simple tech repair service had grown into a billion-dollar company. His face was on magazine covers. His name echoed in boardrooms and on Wall Street. People called him a genius, a shark, a legend, but no one ever called him happy. 10 years ago, a rainy night changed his life forever. His parents, James and Evelyn Blake, were driving back from a charity gala when a drunk driver ran a red light. Their car flipped 3 times before crashing into a tree. Ethan was supposed to be with them that night. He wasn't, and he never forgave himself. He buried his pain in meetings, deals, and deadlines. Every success brought more money, more fame, but the void in his chest only grew wider. He had women in his life, sure, stunning models, socialites, actresses who draped themselves over him at galas, whispering sweet things with smiles that never reached their eyes. But none of them loved him. They loved the power, the private jets, the credit cards. Ethan wasn't stupid. He saw through the fake laughter, the practiced compliments, the way they looked at his Rolex more than his eyes. So he stopped trying. Love, he decided, was a luxury for other men. Men with simpler lives, fewer walls around their hearts. Each night after the last email was sent and the staff had gone, Ethan would retreat into his private lounge. There, a single photo sat on the fireplace mantel. His mother's smile frozen in time, her hand resting on Ethan's shoulder. His father, strong and proud, holding a tiny model of the first Blake Tech prototype. "I'm still trying," Ethan would whisper to them sometimes. "But it's hard." The fire crackled. The room smelled faintly of sandalwood and old memories. Then came Lucas. Lucas Monroe had been Ethan's best friend since college. He was the only person who didn't care about Ethan's money, the only one who still called him out when he was being cold. One night, as Ethan swirled a glass of bourbon and stared into the flames, Lucas dropped the bomb. "You need to go on a blind date," Ethan scoffed. "You can't be serious." Lucas leaned against the bar. "I'm dead serious. One dinner. No business talk. No famous people. Just a woman who doesn't know who you are." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "And why would any woman agree to that?" "She's tired of fake love too." Ethan shook his head. "I don't have time for games, Lucas." "This isn't a game," Lucas said gently. "It's a chance. You've been living like a ghost, man. You built this empire so fast you forgot to build a life." Ethan didn't respond. Lucas stepped closer. "Look, I know you lost them. I know it still hurts. But you've got to let someone in. Just once. What's the worst that can happen?" Ethan turned toward the photo on the mantel again. The silence in the room grew heavy, pressing on his chest like a weight. He remembered the way his mother used to hum in the kitchen, the way his father used to ruffle his hair after every little victory, the way their love had filled every room. And now, he lived in a palace made of glass and stone, and not a single person to share it with. He exhaled slowly. "One date?" Lucas smiled. "Just one. No last names, no cameras. No lies either," Lucas added. Ethan nodded. "Fine. One night." He didn't know it yet, but that night would change everything. He would step into that restaurant expecting nothing but polite conversation, and walk out with his heart wrapped around the soul of a woman who would teach him that love, the real kind, doesn't care about wealth or power. It only wants truth. And maybe, just maybe, Ethan was finally ready to give it. In a quiet town where time moved slower than the rest of the world, Isabelle Moore woke every morning to the soft sound of birds and the gentle chime of her wind bell outside her window. She lived in a small cottage tucked behind an old willow tree, its branches drooping like it was trying to protect her from the harsh world beyond. At 29, Isabelle's life looked nothing like a fairy tale, and yet it was filled with tiny, quiet moments that she held on to like treasure. She taught music to children at the town's only elementary school. Her days were filled with chalk dust, off-key singing, tiny hands beating drums, and laughter that echoed down the halls. She didn't need glamour. She didn't chase spotlight or wealth. But she did dream. Sometimes. Dreamed of someone who would look into her eyes and not see just a teacher or just a small-town girl. Someone who saw her, truly saw her. But the world hadn't been kind. Isabelle had grown up in that town, and while it was filled with friendly faces on the surface, people whispered. They always had. She was the quiet girl, the one who never wore makeup, who always had her nose in a book instead of gossiping. She didn't attend town dances. She didn't care for parties. She preferred hiking trails to high heels and soft piano music to loud clubs. So they judged her. Too plain, too odd, too quiet. But Isabelle had her own quiet strength. She smiled through the whispers. She poured her love into her students. And in the evenings, when she was alone in her living room with her tea and piano, she let herself feel it all. The pain, the hope, and the tiny flickers of longing she never spoke aloud. Once she had thought she found love. His name was Trevor, charming, sweet-talking, with a smile that fooled her. For months, he made her feel like she was enough, until she overheard a phone call. He thinks she's got some kind of inheritance. Her family used to have land or something. I'll stick around a little longer. Her world crumbled in an instant. She confronted him. He didn't deny it. And then he left. No apology. No goodbye. Just silence. Since then, Isabelle had locked her heart away. She told herself love was for other people, that maybe her life was meant to be simple, safe, predictable. But her best friend Claire refused to let her settle. You deserve more, Claire would say, pushing a cup of coffee into her hands after school. You've spent your whole life giving to everyone. It's time someone gives to you. Isabelle laughed bitterly. Like who? The town baker? Claire smirked. Actually, I set you up on a blind date. What? Claire, no. He's not from here, that's the best part. Isabelle crossed her arms. What does he do? I don't know the details, but he's different. Great. He's probably a weirdo. Claire leaned in, whispering, maybe, or maybe he's the man who'll finally see the real you. Isabelle wanted to say no, to stay in her safe little bubble where no one could hurt her. But that night, after washing her face and curling up on the couch, she found herself staring at the stars through her window. They twinkled quietly, reminding her how small she was, and how big the world still could be. Her fingers drifted across the piano keys, playing a soft melody, the kind she always played when she was thinking too much. She closed her eyes. Maybe, just maybe. She was tired of being lonely too. The next morning she called Claire. Fine, I'll go on the blind date. Claire screamed into the phone. Yes, you're going to wear that blue dress, right? I'm not wearing anything fancy, Isabelle said. He's just a man. She paused. Besides, it's not like a millionaire is going to fall for a school teacher. But somewhere in her chest, her heart whispered, go. And this time, she listened. Little did Isabelle know, the man waiting at that restaurant had more in common with her than she could ever imagine. Two hearts, two worlds, one quiet hope. And fate was about to do something neither of them saw coming. The rain had stopped just an hour before. The sidewalk still shimmered beneath the soft glow of the streetlights. A gentle breeze carried the scent of spring. Wet leaves, distant blossoms, and something else. Something unexplainable in the air. The restaurant was tucked between two old brick buildings, a hidden gem most people walked past without noticing. No flashing signs, no crowd, just soft violin music drifting through the open door and the quiet hum of voices inside. It was perfect. Ethan Blake stepped out of the car his assistant had begged him to take, but tonight he told his driver to leave. No security, no limousine, no designer suit, just jeans, a soft gray sweater, and a flicker of hope burning in his chest he hadn't felt in years. His heart beat harder than it had on the day he launched his company, harder than it had in any boardroom. Tonight was not about power, it was about a chance. He opened the restaurant door. Warmth wrapped around him, the soft light, the low music. the scent of basil and fresh bread. He looked around, then stopped. There she was, Isabelle, sitting at the corner table by the window, her soft brown hair tied into a loose braid, a faded book resting in her hands. She wasn't scrolling through a phone or pretending not to be nervous. She was simply being, present, calm, real. Something stirred inside Ethan, something gentle, something he couldn't name. He took a deep breath and walked over. She looked up, and in that 1 second, their eyes met, and everything else in the room disappeared. The noise faded, the music faded. Even the ache in his chest from years of loneliness seemed to pause. Her eyes widened slightly, not with awe, but with curiosity. Ethan smiled softly. "Hi, I'm Ethan." She smiled back, not with the forced politeness of someone trying to impress, but with warmth. Ethan smiled softly. "Hi, I'm Ethan." She smiled back, not with the forced politeness of someone trying to impress, but with warmth. "Isabelle," she replied, "I teach kids how to play the piano." And with that one line, the ice melted. They sat down, and the conversation flowed like they'd known each other for years. No small talk, no fake laughter, just real things. They shared their childhood memories, how Ethan once broke his dad's laptop trying to fix it with peanut butter, and how Isabelle used to pretend her old piano was a time machine that could take her to places she'd never afford. They laughed over their favorite foods. Ethan confessed his secret obsession with diner milkshakes, and Isabelle swore by her grandma's tomato soup recipe. They even talked about weird dreams. Isabelle once dreamed she was running a school on the moon. Ethan, he kept having a dream where he missed his own wedding, to someone whose face he never saw. There were no phones on the table, no distractions, just eye contact, soft smiles, and moments that felt too natural to be planned. For the first time in a decade, Ethan felt like he could breathe around someone. No masks, no walls. And Isabelle? She hadn't smiled this much in years. The way he looked at her, like she was the only person in the room, melted pieces of her heart she thought had died after Trevor. Hours passed like minutes. When the waiter brought the check, neither of them reached for it right away. It felt like leaving would break the magic. Outside, the night had grown quiet. The stars peeked between drifting clouds, watching over the city like silent witnesses to something rare. Ethan stood up and pulled Isabelle's chair gently. As they stepped outside, the breeze brushed her hair across her cheek, and without thinking, Ethan reached out and tucked it behind her ear. She didn't flinch. She didn't pull away. She looked up at him, and in her eyes he saw something so pure, so unguarded, it stole his breath. "I had a wonderful time," Isabelle said softly. "I haven't felt this alive in a long time," Ethan replied. Then his voice lowered, cautious, almost vulnerable. "Can I see you again?" Isabelle hesitated. She glanced down, fingers twisting in her coat sleeve. "I'm not the kind of woman people expect a man like you to be with," she whispered. The words carried the weight of every judgment, every wound, every time she was told she wasn't enough. But Ethan didn't blink. He took her hand slowly, carefully, like it was something precious. "That's exactly why I want to see you again." And in that moment, something shifted. The world didn't know it yet, but fate had just introduced two souls that had spent their entire lives waiting for a moment like this. Love is a beautiful thing, but even the sweetest love can carry the weight of hidden truths. Over the next few weeks, Ethan and Isabelle shared more than just dinners and sunsets. They shared pieces of themselves, slowly, carefully, like passing notes folded from fragile paper. They walked along riverbanks, hands brushing. They cooked simple meals together, Isabelle laughing as Ethan nearly set the garlic bread on fire. They danced in her kitchen to music from the 60s, and they learned each other's favorite sounds. Isabelle loved the way his voice softened when he said her name. Ethan loved the way she laughed when the wind caught her hair and made her chase it like a child again. But behind all the smiles, they were both hiding something. Isabelle noticed things. Ethan didn't talk much about his job. Sometimes when his phone buzzed, he would glance at it, sigh, and quickly put it away. Other times, she'd catch a glimpse of emails with strange terms. Project acquisitions, stocks, board approval. Once she asked him, So what is it you build exactly? He smiled gently. Solutions, he replied. She laughed, brushing it off. But deep inside she knew Ethan was someone important, and she feared what that meant for them. Because where she came from, dating a man like Ethan didn't make you admired. It made you judged. People in her small town whispered if you stepped out of line. If a girl wanted more than she was supposed to want, they called her greedy. If she dated someone rich, they said she was using him, and Isabelle was so tired of being judged. But still, she kept seeing him, because when she was with Ethan, she felt like more than the quiet music teacher. She felt seen, respected, alive. Yet every time she got home after their dates, she'd sit on the edge of her bed, look into the mirror, and whisper to herself, "Can this last?" On the other side, Ethan struggled too. He didn't want to lie, but telling her the truth too soon felt like a trap. Too many women in his past had changed the moment they learned who he really was. They smiled wider, flirted harder, asked about his house, his cars, his accounts. They saw a lifestyle, not a man. But Isabelle never asked, not once. Not about money, not about fame. She asked about his dreams, his fears, his childhood. That's how he knew she was different, and that terrified him. So he planned something. One late afternoon, when the sky was painted gold and soft clouds drifted like silk across the horizon, Ethan picked her up and drove her outside the city. They climbed a quiet hilltop where the world felt far away. There was a single oak tree at the top, and from it you could see everything. The rooftops below, the winding roads, the way the sun kissed the earth before disappearing. They sat on a blanket, sharing a small picnic. Grapes, cheese, crackers, simple things. Isabelle leaned her head against his shoulder, content. But Ethan's heart was pounding. He had to tell her. He turned to her, gently lifting her hand into his. "Isabelle," he began, his voice softer than she'd ever heard. "There's something I've been hiding." She looked up, eyebrows furrowing, but didn't speak. "I'm not just a guy who builds things. I own a company. It's called Blake Tech." Silence. She blinked. "Wait, Blake Tech?" she whispered. He nodded. "It's mine. I built it. I run it." For a long moment, she just stared at him. Then, a soft smile spread across her face. "I figured you weren't exactly a school janitor," she said with a wink. Ethan burst out laughing, tension breaking like glass in sunlight. "But," she continued, squeezing his hand, "that doesn't change anything. I care about who you are when no one's watching." Ethan's smile faltered, not because he was unhappy, but because her words shook something in him. He had been so afraid, and she accepted him without blinking. Then Isabelle grew quiet. "There's something I haven't said either." He leaned in, listening. "I come from a town that doesn't believe in fairy tales. People there, they judge me for wanting more, for dreaming big, for dating someone different. Some say I should just know my place." Her voice cracked slightly. "And I don't have thick skin like you, Ethan. Every whisper hurts. Every glare makes me feel like I'm doing something wrong, just by choosing to be happy." Tears threatened at the corners of her eyes, but she didn't let them fall. Ethan reached out and gently brushed her cheek with his thumb. "Let them say what they want," he whispered. "Let them scream, whisper, stare. What matters is what we choose." He pressed her hand to his chest where his heart beat strong and steady. "And I choose you." The sun dipped below the horizon, casting the hilltop in golden shadow. And there, surrounded by the quiet beauty of the world and the messy honesty between two hearts, they chose each other. Not for wealth, not for image, but for truth, for love. The world changed overnight. What started as a secret romance on hilltops and kitchen dances suddenly became a storm neither of them saw coming. It happened fast, one photo. That's all it took. A paparazzi, hiding near a quiet cafe where Ethan and Isabelle had shared coffee, snapped a picture. In the photo, Ethan had his arm around her. Isabelle was laughing, unaware of the camera. The next morning, the internet exploded. Millionaire falls for a nobody? Isabelle Moore. Gold digger or genuine love? Blake Tech CEO seen with unknown woman. Who is she? The headlines were everywhere. Social media swarmed with comments. Some were kind. Many were cruel. Strangers tore Isabelle apart. She's just after his money. She's not even pretty enough for him. This won't last. Wait till she ruins him. Isabel's phone buzzed nonstop, her inbox filled with messages from people she didn't know. Some called her names. Others accused her of being fake. But the worst wasn't online. It was in her small town. The place she'd lived her whole life turned its back on her. At school, whispers followed her down every hallway. Teachers gave her cold glances. The principal asked her to keep her personal life more private. Then came the anonymous letters. Folded pieces of paper slipped into her school mailbox. One read, "You've embarrassed this town." Another, "We don't want gold diggers teaching our kids." Some parents started complaining. They said her new lifestyle set a bad example, that she was making the school look bad. One group even tried to get her fired. Isabelle was crushed. Her safe place, her music room, now felt like a battlefield. The piano keys, once filled with joy, now echoed like distant thunder. She didn't cry at first, she tried to stay strong, but each day made her shoulders heavier. Ethan found out quickly. His team showed him the headlines, the blogs, the angry parents forum. He was furious. He stormed into his office, slamming doors, shouting, "How dare they? They don't know her. They don't know us." He paced back and forth, fists clenched. "I'll sue the papers," he said. "Buy the school if I have to. I'll destroy anyone who hurts her." But when he told Isabelle this, she placed a gentle hand on his chest and shook her head. "No," she said softly. "You don't have to destroy anyone." He stared at her, confused, still fuming. She looked up into his eyes, her voice calm but firm. "We just have to prove them wrong. Not with anger, with love." He blinked, his heart aching at her strength. Even now, after everything, she wasn't asking for revenge. She was asking for hope. But it got worse before it got better. One night, she didn't answer his calls. He drove 2 hours to her town, worried sick. He found her sitting on the steps of her porch, knees pulled to her chest, tears streaking down her face. "I'm sorry," she whispered, barely able to look at him. "I don't want to ruin your name, Ethan. The world is watching now. I'm just a teacher. Maybe we're too different." Her voice broke on the last word. Ethan knelt in front of her, gently lifting her chin so she could see him. His eyes weren't just sad. They were blazing with something stronger. Devotion. "Listen to me," he said, his voice firm but tender. "You are everything I never knew I needed. You gave me peace, laughter, realness. You made me believe in love again." He took both her hands and placed them over his heart. "I don't care what people say. I care what we feel. And I'm not losing you. Not now, not ever." She closed her eyes, letting the warmth of his words soak into her soul. That night, she didn't sleep alone. Ethan stayed. He cooked her tea, held her when she cried, sat with her on the porch until the stars faded and the morning birds began to sing. And slowly, something started to shift. Ethan released a public statement, not from a lawyer, but from himself. In it, he said, "I'm in love with a woman who makes no noise but speaks volumes. She has no interest in my wealth and never asked for fame. If anyone should be ashamed, it's those who judge a good heart without knowing it." And something incredible happened. People began to listen. Some wrote messages of apology. Parents who had once complained now sent flowers. Her students left kind notes on her desk. "We love you, Miss Moore." The media slowly backed off. Ethan's quiet strength and Isabelle's unshakable grace started to turn the tide. They didn't need to scream to be heard. They just stood together and didn't let go. And in a world so quick to judge, their quiet, loyal love became something louder than all the noise around them. 1 year had passed. The storms had settled. The headlines faded. The cruel whispers quieted. The world, once loud with judgment and noise, now felt softer, like a song played on gentle keys. Isabelle had gone back to teaching. Her classroom was full of music again, laughter again, and most importantly, peace again. And Ethan? He had never looked happier. He didn't care about gala invites anymore. He skipped business award dinners. Instead, he came to her classroom recitals, clapping the loudest when a 6-year-old hit the right note. He learned the names of her students, even helped paint a new music room for her school, without cameras, without news crews. He didn't want credit. He just wanted a life with her. And now, it was time. The evening was warm, kissed by a golden sunset. A private garden nestled behind an old farmhouse had been decorated with soft white lights. Tied between trees like stars had come down to visit. Petals lined the path. Soft, classical music floated through the air, played by her own students. Isabelle had no idea what was waiting for her. She stepped into the garden wearing a light blue dress, her hair gently curled, her heart beating like a drum. And then she saw them, the children, all standing in a half circle, holding wildflowers in their small hands, smiling brightly. One whispered, "He's waiting for you, Miss Moore." At the center of the garden, under a blooming arch of lilacs and roses, Ethan stood. He wore a simple gray suit. No press, no reporters, just him, the kids, and the woman he loved. When she walked toward him, everything else disappeared. He reached out his hand. "Hi," he said, smiling nervously. "You look like the most beautiful melody ever written." She laughed softly, brushing away a tear before it could fall. Ethan took a deep breath. "I wanted the world to be quiet tonight," he said, his voice a little shaky. "Because in the quiet, I found you, and in you, I found peace." He got down on one knee. Gasps from the children filled the garden. In his hand, he held a delicate silver ring, its shape crafted like a small music note wrapped around a heart. "Isabelle Moore," he said, eyes full of emotion, "you showed me the kind of love money can't buy. You taught me patience, kindness, hope." He smiled as his voice cracked. "You didn't just love me. You healed me. You made me believe in forever." He took her hand gently. "So, will you marry me and help me build a world that's better, one note at a time?" Isabelle covered her mouth as tears streamed down her cheeks. The children were already clapping, though no answer had been spoken yet. She nodded, her voice catching. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, Ethan. 1,000 times yes." He slid the ring onto her finger, then stood and pulled her close. Their kiss was gentle, but it echoed louder than any applause. And in that moment, under the stars, surrounded by flowers and innocent eyes, the world was quiet. For the first time in a long time, it was quiet, because love had spoken. Not loud, not flashy, not with riches or fame, but with truth. And that truth was this: love does not ask where you're from, what you wear, or what you earn. Love does not care about class, about gossip, or even race. Love, real love, sees the heart. And when it sees something true, it holds on. The world had tried to tell Ethan and Isabelle they were too different, too rich, too poor, too simple, too elite, too much, and not enough. But they didn't listen. They loved each other quietly, fully and bravely. And in the end, that love didn't just change them. It silenced a cruel world. It taught a lesson that no matter your past, your skin, your bank account, or your background, love is the one language we all deserve to speak. And when we choose love over judgment, we build a better world, one heart at a time, one note at a time, forever.